This is a Swedish take on the Sten gun or the grease gun. It's a sheet metal and steel bar derived design. It's relatively short in use. You have this very robust folding stock. You can shoot it with the stock folded very conveniently, grasp the magazine around the magazine well, and just shoot it offhand, freehand. The stock deploys very, very quickly and easily, but and once deployed is incredibly solid. It's never going to fold up on you. It doesn't wobble like the MP40 stock famously does. It's cost effective, but it is reliable. It's accurate enough. And that all came together to mean that the various American elements favored it, not just the Swedish armed forces. And they then crop up elsewhere, as we've seen in Ukraine. This is something that soldiers these days relatively rarely run into. And it's a much simpler system than what they'll be used to from their service weapon, which is some sort of locking bolt system and a gas system to then unlock that bolt and operate the weapon, cycle the working parts. You don't have any of that with a weapon like this. For Brits, the iconic equivalent is the Sten or the Sterling. They both work the same way. And it is this heavy mass here that's keeping the bolt shut, but it starts from back here. So you'll hear or see the expression open bolt along with blowback. Now, blowback doesn't have to be open bolt, but in the case of this thing, they are synonymous. Same with the Sten. So you literally have, well, it's more of an open ejection opening, if you see what I mean, but the bolt is to the rear on a simple sear, a shelf that holds it back. You pull the trigger, the bolt flies forward, picks up a round from the magazine and chambers it. Normally, obviously, you do that when you make ready. This makes itself ready and then fires on at the point of closure. And then literally the bolt blows back to that starting position. And if you're on semi-automatic or you've let go of the trigger, this doesn't have a semi-auto function, or you let go of the trigger, the bolt gets hung up back here again. So it's about the simplest automatic firearm you can make, which is why they proliferated pretty much during and after the Second World War, where cost became an issue, and then they proved themselves throughout the Second World War as a viable design. And so people kept designing them and making them, which is what this represents. So normally a firearm is designed for a particular cartridge type. They may well be adapted to different cartridge types later in their development. They may even these days be developed with different calibers in mind from the outset. At this time, that was pretty unusual. You'd pick 9 mil parabellum, 45 ACP. They're the two main ones, and you'd go from there. Well, the Swedish K is kind of fascinating and this is to do with the Swedes had large stocks of these, that the prior generation submachine gun magazines called the coffin, or colloquially in English at least called the coffin magazine, because you have multiple stacks coming down to one feed point up here. Potentially these are not the most reliable, although I gather they're very good for such a high capacity magazine. 50 rounds, this lets you cram in 50 rounds. But the slight issue is that it's a bit like when no one will merge on the motorway, in that all the rounds are trying to get to this one point of feed. You're able to just slot that in to this open magazine. It's not really a well, the magazine opening, no problem at all. But what they did was design an even better magazine. It is double stack, double feed. Quite a lot like the Thompson magazine. So it's open at the top. No one has to merge. The bolt will just strip off one round from one side, the next round from the next side. For that to function properly and reliably, what they came up with was a kind of an early modular idea. So this magazine well is a separate piece, and it has this bizarre looking double pin. So you slot on, you can convert this thing between the two types of magazines by inserting that and then inserting this on the other side. So in seconds, you have switched from the very good high capacity, but getting older as they're no longer being made, then they become obsolete later on. To this, arguably even better, because with fast magazine changes, the high capacity becomes less of an issue. Reliability is king when it comes to this type of submachine gun, and that will now fit in there. It's a straightforward adaptation of the name. So forgive my accent, but Kulspruta pistol is machine pistol or submachine gun in Swedish. It's a Swedish gun. So just drop the rest of the word off because we can't pronounce it. K. It's the Swedish K, because you can't just call it K. No one would know what you're talking about. And that does reflect this fondness that American, particularly the Navy SEALs who got hold of these things, I believe other units as well, and most infamously CIA operators would carry this thing by preference. And we're talking about 1950s, and by this point 60s into the 70s. This is the era of the submachine gun. So a capable submachine gun is going to be well liked. This was capable. Reliable, that's very important as well. The Sten gun even showed up in Vietnam in American use. So to some extent, it's what was available. Now that's because they came with suppressors. But there's certainly a personal preference being expressed for this thing. We are seeing actual trench fighting. We are seeing fighting from armored vehicles extensively in Ukraine. So it's not that this couldn't be a capable weapon. It's that there are just more capable weapons out there in quantity, actually. So Western supplied short-barreled automatic or semi-automatic rifles, assault rifles, especially those with folding stocks. You can stow that in a vehicle, jump out and use it as and when. Yes, this is going to be even shorter, perhaps, than some, but bearing in mind that the Soviet sphere, the presence of the AKS-74U, for example, that's a superior vehicle crew weapon. You can do more infantry fighting with that than you can with this thing. And certainly the AK-74, the AKS-74 with the folding stock, the AK-74M, captured AK-12s, CZ Bren 2s, the bullpups that they have, all of these are superior by virtue of a rifle cartridge. It might be a small rifle cartridge, but you can just do a lot more with it. Most of what we're seeing here are, look at this cool old gun pictures. Maybe some of the vehicle crew members we see with them are carrying them as a personal weapon, but I don't think it's that significant. They have them, so they're carrying them and using them.